Hello everyone, my name is Lecture1.1.1. I'm from Department of Botany, Faculty of Science, Lecture University. Welcome everyone to General Botany class. If you want to contact me, use this email or go to Google Classroom, find my name and click email. So let's start it with the question, what are plants? Can anyone give me an idea what they are? Is there is any organisms with the green color considered plants? Of course not. So if you take a look at this diagram, this is all the organisms. Let me change it into laser. All right. So the whole thing are all the plants, all the animal, every organism that you can imagine, including fungi and algae and bacteria. Of course, not all are plants. These guys don't even be able to do photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is just the process that can use the sunlight to convert carbon dioxide into sugar, in a short explanation. And some of the photosynthetic organisms, they are not plants either. Those include bacteria. All the bacteria, either green sulfur, purple sulfur, or cyanobacteria, they are not plants. If you get closer to some algae like brown algae, diatom, and red algae and green algae, they are not plant either because um they are not quite similar to plants enough. And some of the eukaryotic organisms just are plants. So here it's quite difficult to distinguish between algae like diatom, brown and red algae and green algae, why they are not plants. But the detail or explanation of this is quite difficult, and I don't want you guys to get confused about that. So right now we have a lot of information like what are cells, what are eukaryotic organism, what are eukaryote, what are bacteria. I will give you some explanation in the next video. Right now you can just know that cells is the smallest unit of all organisms. Every living organism need to have cells, either one cell or more. And eukaryotes are type of the organism or type of cells that plants belong to. There are another one like bacteria and archaea, they belong to prokaryotic. Right now, I want you to jump into my time machine. We'll take you back 3.5 billion years ago. At that time, you can imagine you are in a time machine, like a bubble that you can look around in the past. You look into the sea with bubble, a lot of stuff boiling, a lot of high pressure. In there, you got some first living organisms forming, and that organisms we generally call it an origin of life. And from the first organisms, it need to be active. It need to be able to reproduce. It need to be able to divide themselves. And that organism later make copy of themselves and so on and so forth. They begin with just the first organism and end up with many organisms because during the process of making themselves, they keeping up making an error. And a lot of errors means differences. So at the end, it takes around 3.5 billion years ago until present day. You can see that we have a lot of organisms. We have bacteria, we have eukaryote, which are algae, plants, fungi, or mushroom, and animal. And we also have archaea. So how just one organism become like thousands of billions of type of organisms? How that happens? From the beginning, the first thing to split off from um, the origin of life is bacteria. There are um, two times splitting right here. The third one is archaea, and then animal and fungi together, and later they split up into fungi and animal. For this, the common ancestor, algae and plants split up much later. And if you take a closer look, you can see the broken lines, this one and this one. These two broken lines referring to an events or two events of endosymbiosis. This is just the meaning that the bacteria got eaten up by eukaryotic cells. In spite of being eaten, it is very stubborn. It's not die. It's not dead. It survived the digestion of the host and become a co-living. They live together. They live inside a host, a eukaryotic host, and do the job. They they are mitochondria. They allow the organisms, the eukaryotic cells, to breathe the air and use that energy to digest the food. So later it become mitochondria. Similar to chloroplast endosymbiosis. In this picture, it's called plastid endosymbiosis. Don't worry about that. Plastid and chloroplast are very similar. They are the same actually. So another type of bacteria or chloroplast is got eaten up by the ancestor of plant and algae and later become chloroplast for these two kinds of organisms and do photosynthesis to as for these plants and algae. So now we know roughly an idea what are the plants. So the next question is how plants grow. So to be able to answer this question, you need to learn about the plant's physiology. So let's take a look at the first picture, gas exchange. Plant need to breathe like we do. So instead of having a nose like human or animals, plants has windows. It has a lot of windows. Tiny one. In the leaves, they have a small window. They have a hinge, the window itself, and the hole, the pore that allow the plants to breathe the oxygen or carbon dioxide in and breathe out all the oxygen or sometimes a carbon dioxide to do photosynthesis. At the same time, the root of the plants take up water and nutrients across the root surface and transported that through the leaves where it perceive or receive the light from the sun and breathe the carbon dioxide in, and the sun energy can converted carbon dioxide into sugar, and the sugar is transported back to the root where it do not have any chloroplast. So the plants need to have multi functional feature to be able to survive and make food for people. Apart from that features, plants need to perceive signal or they need to get to know what's happening around them because plants cannot move around. They cannot escape or the, the bad things. They cannot escape the bright light. They cannot escape cold temperature. They cannot escape very little water places, or they cannot escape animal for munching the leaves. So plants need to know what is happening and then decide what to respond accordingly. And finally, plant need to get a good support from the cell wall. If they have the very good support, they can grow much taller. And the plants that don't have very good support, they will not grow too much of the height. So in this lecture, um, in this part of the physiology, we will have 5 lectures. Lecture 1, plant cell and water relation. Lecture 2, plant metabolism and enzymes. Lecture 3, photosynthesis. 4, respiration, and 5, growth and development. In this lecture, you will know the plants from just the seed to the baby plant to adult plant and sexually active adult plants. All right, let's see you guys in the next video.